A 4-year-old boy in Louisiana wakes up screaming. Again. Same nightmare. A plane on fire, crashing into water. He says he can't get out. His parents try to calm him down. They tell him it was just a dream. But then he says something they will spend the next decade trying to explain. He tells them the pilot's name. He tells them the name of the ship the plane took off from. He tells them about a friend who died next to him. And every single detail he gives, a man who lived 60 years before he was born, a man named James Houston Jr., a Navy pilot shot down over the Pacific in 1945. Every single detail checks out. This isn't a movie. This isn't a story passed around the internet. This is a real case, documented by real psychiatrists in peer-reviewed journals. And it is one of more than 2,500 cases like it. So what's actually happening to these children? Let's start with the man who spent his entire life trying to find out. In 1961, a psychiatrist at the University of Virginia named Ian Stevenson did something his colleagues thought was career suicide. He stopped studying schizophrenia. He stopped publishing on Standard Psychiatry. And he started flying around the world to interview small children who claimed to remember being someone else. Stevenson wasn't a fringe figure. He was the head of the Department of Psychiatry at UVA. He had published in every major medical journal you can name. And what he found in the field over the next 40 years is the reason there is now an entire research division at the University of Virginia School of Medicine still studying this today. The pattern was always the same. Almost every child began speaking about the previous life between the ages of 2 and 4. Almost every child stopped talking about it between the ages of 6 and 8. The memories arrived right as language arrived, and faded right as the brain finished its first major rewiring. And the details these children gave were not vague. They were specific. They were testable. Stevenson's rule was simple. He would not write up a case unless the child made statements before the family had any chance to confirm them. Names of strangers, streets in towns the family had never visited, causes of death, wounds, possessions, family members who were still alive in those distant towns, and who could be found and asked. By the time of his death in 2007, Stevenson had documented more than 2,500 of these cases across India, Sri Lanka, Lebanon, Thailand, Burma, Turkey, West Africa, Alaska, and the United States. And the most haunting part of his research wasn't the memories, it was the bodies. Roughly 35% of the children Stevenson studied were born with birthmarks or birth defects. And in case after case, those marks lined up exactly with the wounds that killed the person they claimed to have been. A boy in Turkey was born with the right side of his face malformed and his right ear missing. He said he had been shot in the head. Stevenson tracked down the autopsy report of the man the boy named. The bullet had entered the right side of the skull. A boy in India was born with stubs instead of fingers on one hand. He claimed to have lost those fingers in a fodder chopping machine. Stevenson found the family of the man in question. The man had lost the same fingers on the same hand the same way. Stevenson published over 200 of these birthmark cases in a 2-volume work in 1997. Mainstream science still doesn't know what to do with it. But here's what's strange. Even if you throw all of that out, even if you decide every single one of those families was lying or coaching, you still have to explain something else. Because the same pattern keeps showing up in places where nobody believes in reincarnation at all. In 2002, Stevenson's successor, a psychiatrist named Jim Tucker, took over the research at UVA. Tucker focused on American cases, American children, Christian families, atheist families, families who had never heard of reincarnation, families who were horrified when their toddler started describing a death. The Louisiana case at the start of this video is one of his. The boy, James Leininger, gave 50 specific, verifiable details about a World War II pilot, the names of 2 ships, the names of crewmates, the exact way the plane went down. His parents only believed it after they met James Houston's surviving sister, who confirmed details her own family had never made public. Tucker's research found that American children who report past life memories tend to share a very specific pattern. About 70% of them describe a death that was sudden, violent, or untimely. Plane crashes, drownings, fires, murders. Almost never old age, almost never peaceful. It is as if something is interrupted before it finishes. And then it gets stranger, because some of these children don't just remember the death, they remember what happened after. Tucker has documented cases where children describe being above the scene, watching their own body, then a period of waiting, then choosing the parents they ended up with. 3- and 4-year-olds in different countries with no contact with each other, describing the same sequence in roughly the same order. So what is actually going on? There are really only a few possible explanations, and every one of them is uncomfortable. The first is fraud, parents coaching children for attention. This is the easiest explanation, and in some cases, it's almost certainly true. But it falls apart in the strongest cases. A 3-year-old in Ohio cannot fake an autopsy report from 1945. A boy in India did not coach himself into being born with the right fingers missing. The second explanation is coincidence and cryptomnesia. Cryptomnesia is when you absorb information unconsciously, forget you heard it, and later mistake it for an original memory. This probably explains a lot of weaker cases. A child overhears a conversation, a TV show, a half-remembered story, and rebuilds it later as a memory that feels firsthand. But cryptomnesia cannot explain a 2-year-old who has never owned a television naming the right village 400 miles away. The third explanation is genetic memory, the idea that experiences can somehow be encoded into DNA and passed down. Studies on mice in 2013 by researchers at Emory University showed that fear of a specific smell could actually be inherited by offspring who had never encountered that smell. Real biology, real peer review. But genetic memory cannot explain a child remembering the life of a stranger they're not related to. The fourth explanation is the one most scientists refuse to put in print. That's something about identity, about the self, about whatever it is that makes you, you, is not entirely produced by the brain, that it can survive the death of one body and resurface in another. Reincarnation, in plain language. Mainstream neuroscience says this is impossible. The brain produces the mind. When the brain dies, the mind ends. Full stop. Memory is stored in physical neurons. Destroy the neurons, destroy the memory. There is no mechanism by which information could leave one brain and enter another, especially decades apart. And yet, the cases keep happening. Here is what makes them so hard to dismiss. Tucker's UVA database now holds more than 2,500 entries. The youngest children, the ones with the strongest cases, have not yet learned to read. They have no internet. They have no agenda. Many of them are terrified by what they remember. They cry. They beg to be taken home, to a home that isn't theirs. And then, almost always, by the age of 7, the memories start to fade. By the age of 9, most of these children remember nothing. It is as if a door closes. Whatever you believe is happening, that part is real, documented, and consistent across every continent. And it raises a question that almost nobody wants to sit with. Why does it always shut off? Why between 2 and 7? Why never as adults? Because if these memories are nothing but coincidence, why would they vanish on a developmental schedule? And if they are something more, why are children the only ones with the door open? One theory, and it's only a theory, is that the same wave of brain development that lets a child finally form a stable, lifelong sense of self is the same wave that overwrites everything that came before. The same flood of new neurons that erases your memories of being a baby may also erase whatever else was inside that infant brain when it arrived. If that's true, then every adult walking around right now might once have remembered something, and every adult walking around right now has lost it. Not because it wasn't real, but because growing up requires forgetting. We don't know if these children are remembering. We don't know if they're imagining. We don't know if there is a name for the thing that's happening to them. What we know is this. In universities, in peer-reviewed journals, in 2,500 case files locked in an office in Virginia, there are children who say things they should not be able to say, who carry marks they should not be able to carry, and who, between the ages of 2 and 7, briefly seem to remember a life that ended before they were born. And then, like all of us, they forget.